taking advantage of situations is an important part of being a great team in college football. Michigan last year took advantage of NIL to bring back multiple starters who could have went to the NFL, and all of them would have been picked on day 2, day 3, maybe even some day 1. But they brought all of them back and they used their experience to win the national championship. And the Big Ten brought in USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington, taking advantage of the chaos that was the Pac-12. And the SEC did the same thing with Texas and Oklahoma. What I want to know from you, because I only have one perspective and one set of eyes, is where do you see conference realignment going next? Are we in another decade lull, like after Nebraska, Rutgers, and Maryland moved to the Big Ten, and Missouri and A&M went to the SEC, that things just were on the down low and a pause for about a decade? Or is this just, once again, the calm before the storm, and we're going to see Florida State, Miami, Clemson, Notre Dame, and other schools mark their exodus to new conferences?
Yeah, personally, right now, I think that we're going to be in that lull. I think that we're at a little bit of a stopping point, because what right now we're seeing happen with the ACC is painting that picture, is that there's just so many hurdles in the way for there to be an immediate departure. I know that there is an out or a potential look in that ESPN contract in the next few years, but that's still not completely imminent. I also don't think that they're going to have the money right this second. But what is going to be the biggest catalyst for any movement is if any of those programs in the ACC, I don't even think it has to be Florida State or Clemson or a team like North Carolina. If one of those teams decides to go the private equity route, and said private equity firm or whoever might decide to invest in any of these football programs, which is going to come a lot sooner than I think people realize. If that does come sooner and they're willing to foot the bill to remove a team from a conference, and they're going to be aggressive in trying to relocate them, I think that is going to be what will eventually lead to the downfall of another conference. I don't think it's going to be the Big 12, because I think the Big 12 has actually positioned themselves very nicely with the size of the conference,
Yes.
the regionality, where it's not too widespread, but it fits the right portions of the country. It's the most competitive that it has ever been. But if something does go down, it feels like it might end up being maybe more of a mid-tier ACC school instead of the ones that are taking all the attention from the top.
It's an interesting perspective for sure. From what I understand, Florida State and Clemson and these schools that have been trying to get out have not had any luck with the grant of rights, and it seems like they may indeed be stuck with the Big Ten and the SEC and even the Big 12 kind of leaving them behind. And the Big 12 being willing to sell their naming rights is huge, because companies will want as much advertising as they can get. And the Big 12, with entertainment, with people like Josh Pate hyping them up, with the fact that Kansas is good, Iowa State is good, these schools that have traditionally been garbage are now somethings, that's going to draw a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah, the additional attention, I think the Big 12, that's the one thing that I think you framed it really great there, is that Yormark is one of the more forward-thinking commissioners that I've seen. And the thing I love about him is he talks shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse or not, but he talks a lot of smack freely, very aggressively. We don't get the same thing from some of these other commissioners, especially like you look at Greg Sankey is just very, very tactile, very specific with his detailed wording on how he tries to answer questions. And Tony Petitti, we barely even hear the guy talk since he's taken this Big Ten job, but Yormark is not afraid to take shots. And I think he understands that because there's this entertainment value, he's got the partnership with the WWE, that if he plays it right and it kind of frames it as the Big 12 against the world, I think that there can be investment not only from those fan bases, but just from sports fans in general that are looking for a fun product to tune into. It doesn't need to live up to the SEC and the Big Ten hype of having unlimited 5 stars on the top teams in the conference. If you put out competitive, close football games, people will tune in.
Yeah, they will, just like they did with the WAC or the Mountain West. People even like the MAC. And then I might be wrong in saying this. Aren't they playing their championship game in Las Vegas? Did they work
It
out?
is. It's in Raider Stadium. Yep.
Oh, that's very smart. Yeah, getting that area, the Las Vegas, Nevada area. They have the whole Mountain Time Zone, much of Central Time Zone. They're all over the place, and they're in Florida too,
Right.
and Cincinnati, and they got West Virginia, who has their own little niche. I think that they are in a good position to, like you said, to be aggressive. They're not passive or totally on defense like the ACC is. Who do you think is going to be the first school, like the first domino that causes the domino effect and causes the house of cards to fall? Who's going to be the first school or one of the first to move?
I have a feeling it's going to be North Carolina before it ends up being. I don't have sourcing on this to before anyone tries to to get it run with, but North Carolina makes the most sense to me because we've heard is that none of these conferences are really super excited to go after and bring in Florida State or Clemson. There's been, I mean, even very direct answers from Greg Sankey saying that he has no intention of adding Florida State into the mix. But North Carolina presents, I think, a far more compelling brand for either of those entities, the Big Ten or the SEC, if they were to add them, because of their presence at basketball and then all of the other sports. If that does end up becoming a priority, they've got a great baseball program. Football has been competitive enough and they've recruited well enough in that region that if you bring them into the conference, they'll be in the middle of the pack. Maybe they'll dip a little bit lower. But if you get another Kentucky type team that's great at basketball and kind of towards the middle and gets a lot of financial investment from a rabid fan base, that's huge. Florida State doesn't present that same advantage. It's really football and baseball. Their basketball team has been very inconsistent. Clemson definitely does not have a good basketball program. So I think that the decision-making for growing these conferences, people forget sometimes that football is not the only sport and that if there is growth, they might look in other directions. And the last part of this is it's a great academic school. I know that sometimes doesn't really sell tickets, but to maybe raise the standard of the conference to have a school like UNC that does as well as it does academically.
Especially for the Big Ten, I think that's a big factor. It's the same with Miami. I did find it strange that Florida State and Clemson were kind of just pushed to the side by Greg Sankey and he declined interest. I can't see why you wouldn't want at least Florida State, given the fact that they're in Florida and their history in the 21st century and how successful they've been, and the fact that I think Norvell is on the up. But that's just me. That's just my perspective. I'm not Greg Sankey.
Well, I think the one thing with that is, and I agree with you, it presents like a really good brand that's won national championships. It's got a huge fan base that's nationwide fan base. But he also has to listen to the members of the university, and he has to make those decisions, not the university, of the conference, and those presidents, those ADs, the decision-making has to come from their influence in a way. So Florida probably has no desire to add Florida State into the mix to help them to some degree.
Yeah, especially since I think that Florida understands that adding Florida State would only push them down in the hierarchy.
Right.
Because Florida State's way better than them right now. Same with Clemson, even with their issues. That's a good point by you. And with the Big Ten, it may be so off geographically, like even more than the West Coast, and it may make far less sense academically to where they don't even want to do it. So, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Thank you for watching this cut of Touchdown Talk. Remember to like the video to help this channel get into the algorithm and grow as we approach the 2024 season. And also subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you can participate in our giveaway at 20,000 subscribers. Help us to grow, join this awesome community, and also be notified when we release new content here on College Football with Sam. I would like to thank my Patreon members for sponsoring this video and channel. A shout out to Crash2488 and Brasco Rascal for being $25 a month Heisman members. A shout out to $10 a month American members, all American members, Chris Lane, Connor Little OH, and Ismar. And a shout out to $5 all conference members, John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, and Janisha Cockrell. Have a great day, guys, and we will see you soon. Bye.